Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so very much for dropping by this video. To anyone who's new, this channel is dedicated to the life, work, and teachings of a very special being named Bruno Groening. You can find out more about him on a website I've created, which is in the chat box. There we go. The screen is backwards. So in the chat box or listed below in the description of this video. So today is the anniversary of Bruno Groening leaving his body. And has me in thought about his life and all that he did for me. I would not be alive if it was not for the work of Bruno Groening. And my health was headed in a downwards direction. There was no clear medical solution in sight. And I got my health back. So in essence, part of what I've been reflecting on today is that I'm living on borrowed time. And, if we think about how many people Bruno Groening worked with when he was in his body, much less who knows how many he's worked with since he's not in his body, how many hundreds of thousands of people could say the same thing? That they are living on borrowed time because of the teachings. And I'm going to say the grace. I say that with some hesitation, but the grace of Bruno Groening. I'll speak to that in a moment. Yeah, that was 2012 when I found Bruno Groening's teachings, and it's 2013. I've had 13 extra years of life. It's not that I was about to leave my body in 2012, but my quality of life was sure headed downhill with no solution in sight. So even if I had continued to live, I would have been bedridden and probably quite miserable. So, I said, through Bruno Groening's teachings and also the grace of Bruno Groening. What do I mean by that? I don't know exactly what to call it, but Bruno pointed out that he would literally take on people's illnesses and burdens and burn it up inside his body. And he actually once said that it made him stronger. He pleaded with people, give me your illnesses, give me your burdens. And many of us have, and many people have, when he was in his body, and now that he's no longer in his body, have just given Bruno Groening burdens. And sometimes it's like that. Sometimes takes a little time. Sometimes takes a lot of time. But many of us have experienced just absolute miracles through Bruno Groening's teaching. Had an illness burned up. Jisoo, welcome. Long time no. Hello. Thank you for saying hi. It makes me smile. Welcome back. So he once showed an X-ray towards the end of his earthly life. He showed an X-ray. And there were two black spots on the X-ray. One of the black spots said, and he was talking to one of his friends, and one of the black spots was Bruno said, "Oh, well, that's other people's illnesses I've taken on. That's no problem." But the other black spot, he said, that's because they're preventing me from healing, and all the negative attacks that were coming his way. So he took our burdens on and then literally bore them and then burnt them up. I'm just a guy. I can't explain that to you. I can only share that's what Bruno Groening said happened, and that myself and many, many other people have just given Bruno Groening their illnesses or Sometimes it takes a little longer. They've vanished. I met a man who went to the Bruno Groening documentary film, watched half an hour, and fell asleep. And this was the first part, I think, is like 2 hours. He watched a little bit, then he fell asleep. And when he woke up, he had a healing. A motorcycle accident he'd had for 20 years. He could not stand without, putting his hands and being like, ah. The first part ended, and he just stood up. He didn't even think about it. It just happened. And then he said, whoa, what happened? So that's what I mean by the grace of Bruno Groening. Someone shows up at a movie to go see a movie, falls asleep, and Bruno took that burden on, and that person did nothing other than show up at a movie. One time, someone was in Germany, this was when Bruno was in his body, was walking down the street and saw this man standing on a front porch, and the person who was walking down the street felt this magnetic pull to go and meet this person. So he went up, and Bruno extended his hand and shook hands with this person, and the person received a healing. This person wasn't a friend of Bruno Groening. So it's hard for us I can't fathom, the work of Bruno Groening. All that he did when he was in his body, all that he's doing now. Of course, we can study the history, and I love to. It's fascinating to hear stories like the one I just shared. Bruno himself said that while his body rested, he was out and about doing work. His body was resting, and his soul and spirit was off busy helping people. I didn't meet the person, but I heard a story of a woman who, she was just surfing the internet, and somehow she ended up on a Bruno Groening website, and she had a healing. She accidentally found her way to a website and had a healing. So my only understanding of that is Bruno took on the burden, gave her goodness, the divine energy, and so who can fathom such a thing? I can't. I can share information, but when push comes to shove, who can understand someone who, when I'm, like, let's say I go to a new social gathering and I meet somebody new and they kind of have negative energy, you can just you're talking to them and they're kind of like, or just, it doesn't feel good. I excuse myself from the conversation as soon as I could, Bruno Groening, he was drawn to people who were unwell so that he could take on their burdens and give them health and also peace. In Christian theology, there's the idea that Christ took on the sins of the world. It's a very common Christian belief, and I can't confirm or deny it, and that's not what this channel is about. But when I think about what Bruno Groening did, I sometimes wonder if he sort of showed us or taught us what Christ did, taking on other people's sins. Now, this is very pertinent when it comes to illness, because illness doesn't happen for no reason. When we experience, in fact, Bruno once spoke about it, that in essence, you take in negative energy and that creates into the body, And that creates tension, and then the tension interferes with the natural flow of the body. He was quite descriptive and said it interferes with the functioning of the organs, and then an illness comes. So illness doesn't just happen for no reason. And we don't just take on negative energy for no reason. We have to think something negative, do something negative, or speak. So when Bruno takes on one of our burdens, he's literally, you could say, taking on our negative karma. We did negative things in the past that have now manifested or are coming through as an illness. It's like we did negative things, and as it says in the Bible, and as Bruno said, you reap what you sow, which is a line right out of the Bible. And of course, there's the Eastern idea of karma. If you do negative things, you're going to experience pain. And so with illness doesn't happen for no reason. We did negative things and we experienced something negative. So you could say it's the price we pay. We all know the price you pay. Like, for example, if you drink a lot, you feel yucky the next morning. If you eat too much food, the price of that is you feel you don't feel good afterwards. Maybe it's fun while you're doing it. But something a little more serious, we do harm to ourselves, to another person. There's consequences to that. And then those consequences can come through as challenging situations or as illnesses. So in essence, because we did negativity, we incurred a debt, and the price to pay is an illness or a burden or a negative situation. So we did harm, we have a debt, but Bruno Groening took that debt on for us and bore the negative consequences. Talk about grace. The other thing that's really on my mind and heart today is, we can study the history of the movements of Bruno Groening's body, meaning what he did while he was here. But there's so many things we don't know about. Bruno Groening said, I am building a ring around the world. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I'm building a ring around the world. And people who haven't even heard the name Bruno Groening will be able to receive the divine energy. So we think about Bruno going from town to town and meeting with people, but there was a whole other layer to his work. That he was truly working for the salvation and the help of the entire planet, and not just while he was in his body. If I understand that correctly, what Bruno said, that I'm building a ring around the world so that people will be able to receive the divine energy, even those who have not heard the name Bruno Groening. Again, I'm just a guy. Nope. But if I understand that correctly, that means that Bruno Groening changed, you could say, the spiritual nature of this planet. If I or you, if we write a book and leave it behind, other people can read it. That's they sometimes call that your legacy. Like, what do you leave behind? Well, according to Bruno Groening, he left behind a changed earth. He left behind something that we can't see with the eyes. He called it a ring that literally makes the divine energy available to everyone. And that's just part of his legacy. We have his words, which for me are some of the clearest expressions of what Christ taught, the practical aspects of the path of Christ. We have so many healing reports. We have many people restored to faith. I didn't believe in God or a higher power when I found Bruno Groening. And after World War II, many people had lost their faith in God. So, each of us has the capacity to change lives and touch lives. And if we're living well, then as we go about our life, we're spreading goodness, we're helping. And sometimes a help is just a smile. Sometimes a help is like doing an errand for someone or calling someone when they're not well or praying for someone. So we all have that ability. And on a spiritual level, Bruno pointed out that we all are receivers and senders of the divine energy. We can all take in the divine, but we can also send it. So the hope is that as we go about living life, we're blessing. We're blessing others. We're helping others. And again, that can just be a cheerful word. One way I love to practice this is when I, go to the grocery store. I ask myself, how can I brighten the cashier's day, the person who's, helping me check out? Like, what can I do to make their day a little better? It might be a joke. It might be like, hey, how are you? It might be learning their name if I go there. And for me, that's kind of a symbolic gesture of how I try to live. And I'm not perfect at it by any means. There's room for infinite growth for myself, and I think all of us. But Bruno gave us an example of what it was like to go about giving and blessing. He once said, although I have remained poor, I am the richest because I was able to help. And there's a very famous song. It's not the love that you receive, it's the love that you give. I think it's a song. I think one of the greatest, not greatest, but something that personally that's very meaningful to me about Bruno Groening is he helped me understand Christ. As of right now in 2025, I'm going to take a quick look here. Hold on one sec. Yeah, the internet is not responding. Last time I checked, there's over 55,000 Christian denominations, and there's new ones popping up every day. And of course, there's people each have their own individual theology or understanding of Christ. So there's a lot of different opinions about who Christ was, what he taught, and what kind of being was he? What was the nature of his character? What would it be like to be around him? And through reflecting on Bruno Groening's life and drawing closer to him, and I hope, and again, there's much room for growth in that department for me to draw closer to Bruno Groening. But in drawing closer to him, in reflecting on his life, in listening to stories about him, I have the sense, wow, that's what Christ was like. He was just in service all the time. I can't prove that, but just deep in my heart, the more I study Bruno's teachings and the more I practice them and the more I reflect on his life, I just really have the sense of Bruno showed us what it was like to really be Christ-like. And he called us to be Christ-like. I don't believe in this lifetime I will become as Christ-like as Bruno Groening. That would be miraculous. I'm not anticipating that. But we can all strive. and aspire. And well, Bruno pointed out that that we could do what he did. That's a hard pill to swallow. Sometimes it is for me, anyway. Ryan, beautiful. Yeah. So in terms of calling it, you called it I'm not going to say the word, but a GC. So I would only say that when necessary. So for those who are watching the replay, he kind of described. He didn't name what it is, but in essence, okay, I will say. He said, "I want to heal a genetic condition I was born with." So first of all, I'm not criticizing. I just want to offer a suggestion, and it's a suggestion all of us need. I need, and all of us can work with. So there's my suggestion to you, to me, and to everyone is to give only details that are necessary when we're describing burdens and illnesses, because to do otherwise can give it extra power. So I fall short in that department sometimes, and I think we all do, because I don't want to go too far into it. So just a little suggestion, and thank you. Said your videos are amazing and appreciated. Thanks. Thank you so much, Ryan. And I hope you can take that not as criticism, but as something to help you along the way. And that's actually very powerful for you to say that, because in the last year or two, well, I'll just say that the suggestion I offer you is something that I struggle with sometimes myself. So I'll just leave it at that. And I look forward to hearing your healing report. I have absolute confidence that it can be healed on this path. And I very much hope and look forward to hearing healing reports from you. So I've talked a little bit about how Bruno Groening would take on burdens. I talked about that we just can't even fathom the impact he's had on so many people's lives. Talked about the spiritual legacy he left of literally putting a circle of energy around the earth so that anyone could access the divine energy. His teachings. So that's Bruno Groening, and now I've started to talk about you and me, how we can be more like Bruno Groening. And also I talked about how, for me personally, I feel like he's helped me understand Christ and Christ's teachings. So on this day where we honor his coming and his work and how painful it was for him to be here, he didn't talk about it a lot, but sometimes he did talk about how deeply painful it was for him to be here because he was constantly under attack from evil. Yet he chose to come here. He reported that he asked God to come here. Why? To help you and me and to literally take on our pain, to help us. If that's not love, I don't know what love is. To ask God, please send me to earth so that I can take on people's pain and sorrow. I'm going to be uncomfortable pretty much the whole time because I'll be under attack from evil, but I want to go and help. Again, if that's not love, I don't know what love is. So Bruno Groening sets the bar pretty high, and he says that we can do what he did. Just as it's written in the Bible, Christ said, "These things and greater will you do." The bar is set very high. So what do we do? Well, I tell you what I do is one day at a time, I strive. I strive to make progress. I try to help out a little bit. I try to deepen my faith. And I try to become a better person so that I can be of more and more service. I say all these things not to brag. I am no saint. I fall short. Many days I go to bed and like, oh, I wish I had done more service. I wish I had given more today. So my view is that Bruno Groening came here to call us to be more Christ-like, to the path of Christ, which does not necessitate formally joining a church or becoming a Christian. But he certainly called us to practice the essential components of what Christ taught, of faith and service and loving God and loving human beings. Discerning between good and evil. Most people think of good and evil as just like a list of behaviors like alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, evil, but the energy of evil, and that our thoughts can be evil. That thoughts. So he really boiled it down to the essence, I believe. That's one way I summarize Bruno's teaching. And Bruno once, I've shared the story many times, and I probably never get tired of sharing it. In the early days, Bruno had 2 children, and Bruno said that they were companions of his from the spirit world. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the essence of it. And he'd be riding. He told a story once. He was riding down the street on a bike with his children, and he would say, "Look, do you see where that temple was 6,000 years ago?" Because Bruno said, when your spiritual eye is fully open, you can see everything from the past and I believe to a certain extent into the future. But everything that has ever happened in a place. Can you imagine? Like here I am in this room, and can you imagine the capacity, or each of you are somewhere in a room, or who knows, maybe someone's on the subway, or God bless the internet. Someone's probably in their bathroom. The internet is what it is. Maybe someone's out for a walk in nature. Can you just look around where you are right now, and can you imagine being able to see everything that has happened there? I don't know, for 10,000 years, 100,000 years, I don't know. I can't say. That's the kind of capacity that Bruno Groening had. So when Bruno Groening asked God to come, it's my belief, I can't prove it, that he knew specifically many of the souls, if not all, of the souls he would help, including you and me, including the people he met physically and the people afterwards. This is my imagining. Bruno Groening was contemplating coming to Earth, and with his fully open spiritual eye, he could see all the people he would help, not just like a vague image of a crowd of people, but each one of us. And again, I don't know how many people Bruno Groening has helped. I'd say a couple 100,000 is a safe estimate, and to know, okay, I would help Arthur. I will help Jisoo. I'll help Ryan. I'll help. There's 6 people live right now. If I come, I will be able to help Janet and Joe and Mike and Alice. And that's my belief. Can't prove it. Bruno never said anything like that I'm aware of. So I believe he came, yes, to help humanity as a whole, but he also came for, this is just my personal belief. I try not to share my personal belief on this channel very often. I try and just share Bruno's teachings and my experience. My belief is he came for me and you specifically. He specifically came to help us. And not just you and me and the people watching, but the people that he helped. Because on the one hand, it's hard to have a personal relationship with Bruno Groening. He's not in a body right now. And my understanding is he knows each one of us better than we do. When he was in a body, people would say he would look at you and they would say it was as if he knew everything. And he demonstrated this, When Greta Hausler first met Bruno, many of you know this story. Actually, it's been a long time since I've heard it. He shared with her when someone asked her to go see Bruno Groening. She said something like, "Oh, I can't possibly go. He's a charlatan," or something like that. And one of the first things Bruno Groening said when he saw her, he looked her right in the eyes and said, "Oh, and mimicked her gestures. Oh, I can't go. He's a charlatan." So he also had a sense of humor. I've shared this so many times, but it's so important. It's important to me. I hope it is to other people. He once shared about the trajectory of Alfred Hosp, Freddie Hosp, one of his close friends. What was going to happen to Freddie in his next lifetime, why he had certain challenges in this lifetime. So it's more than likely that Bruno is aware of our spiritual trajectory across multiple lifetimes for each one of us and knows what's best for us. So it may be hard for us to cultivate a personal relationship with Bruno Groening. I think he has a personal relationship with each one of us. Again, that's just my belief. Tonight, I guess I'm speaking a little bit more from my heart. I try to come here and share the teachings of Bruno Groening because the teachings of Bruno Groening worked for me and saved my life. But tonight is a little more sentimental since we're honoring the leaving of his body. Sometimes what fuels my spiritual path is I say, I want to know Bruno Groening better. I want to understand him. Yes, I want to be like him, and maybe in 100 lifetimes of spiritual progress. Who knows? Maybe it's 5 more, maybe it's 50. I don't know. He probably knows. I want to know that man. I want to know that being. I want to hang out with him. And not just so I can receive spiritual benefit, which I'm sure I would. I can't even imagine. Yeah, I want to spend time with that. I want to spend time with Bruno Groening. He fascinates me. Not only did he save my life, he's utterly fascinating to me. Early Christians believed that Christ did come to save us, but also came to show us our potential. early Christians believed in something called theosis, that we're all engaged in this process of becoming more and more like Christ. And it's also called divinization, to be made into a divine being. And Bruno spoke to that in his own way. He called us to be masters of life. He called us to learn to be masters over matter. He called us to surrender our will to God. He said that we can do what he did. He even once said, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but almost exact words, I get up on the stage once again to show you what life would have been like if you had only done it right from the start, which I understand to mean if we had lived our lives properly, both this lifetime and other lifetimes, we'd be like Bruno Groening. And in fact, Bruno Groening once said, I have remained completely natural. So what if Bruno Groening didn't just come here to help us, which he obviously did, but what if part of that help is to show us what we really are? That we really are made in the image and likeness of God. And we really are destined to be a master of life. Bruno recommended the book, Life and Teachings of the Masters of Far East. The premise of that book is that we are all becoming masters, literal masters. We're all in that process. You know, it's funny, I never really connected the dots, but Bruno said, people often ask me, who am I? He said, they ask me that because they don't know themselves. So in this moment, I'm having the feeling, I don't want to call it revelation, but the feeling that Bruno really did come to show us who and what we really are. That we really are children of God. And as we come to know that and experience that, we'll know Bruno Groening better and better. Well, I came on here and my plan was to talk for 5 minutes, and 37 minutes later, I'm going to wrap up. I would like to say thank you to Jisoo for saying hello. I'd like to say thank you to Ryan for saying hello, and I'm grateful my videos have impacted you. And I look forward to hearing about your healing reports. And if anyone else wants to say hi, please do. I'm going to close with a very fun and silly story, but I think it really shows what Bruno Groening is capable of. So I did an improv comedy. I've done improv comedy. I did it a long time ago in the past, and then maybe 2 years ago, like I did it like literally 20 plus years ago. And then about 2 years ago, I went and did an improv comedy class. And I was just so nervous. I hadn't done it in a while, and I hadn't performed in any way in a while. So I was very nervous. And in the middle of the class, I was getting so nervous that it was like, oh man, this is bad. I was on the verge of having a panic attack. And I was like, no, Bruno, help. I was like, here, take this anxiety. And, in between, so in the class, two people would do an exercise and everyone else would stand on the side and watch. So when I wasn't on the stage, I was standing there, with my hands like this, like my eyes partially closed, like tuning in, because I was just filled with performance anxiety. And when it finally was my turn to get up, the anxiety had left. And I got up. And so I've done improv comedy, I've done skits. I've maybe done let's just say 200 or 300, in my lifetime. A skit lasts a couple of minutes. And I hadn't done any for 20 years. And I get up there and I did the best skit of my life. The absolute best skit I have ever done out of all 300. Not only was it the best, it was like, so here I've done 300. And like, let's say this was the best before that. And this one was like up here, above and beyond. Because I was drawn to Bruno Groening for physical healing. And then after that, I had spent a lot of time in Eastern religion. I was like, okay, well, I want enlightenment. Like, well, okay, but now what I really feel is what I really want is I want to be my best self. Yes, I want to be as healthy as possible. Yes, I want to be as peaceful as possible, which is one definition of enlightenment. In fact, Bruno spoke about that, holding on to the divine peace and never letting it go. Not something I've achieved, by the way. I can only tell you what Bruno said about it. But nowadays, I'm just like, I want to be my best self. And that was such a fun example of being my best self. When I had no fear, it ends up I'm a really funny and talented actor. I don't want to say actor, I'll say improv comedian. And actually, I'll share one other story. I don't know if I've ever shared this one before. Bad me. I need to share more help and healing reports. So when I moved to Florida, I moved here. I didn't know anybody. I just felt drawn to this particular town. I felt drawn here for a long time, actually, for a couple of years. I moved to St. Petersburg, Florida. And for some reason, I just felt drawn there for years. So I moved there and I'm like, well, what am I going to do with my life? And I decided to take dance classes because dance has been something I've really enjoyed over the years. And every time I went to this dance studio, I would tune in on the way there. It was a long drive. It was a good 20 minutes. So I would just tune in. And I was just like, please, Bruno, help me to have a positive experience at this dance class. Well, after doing that for about, I don't know, a month and a half, there was this funny set of circumstances where I ended up teaching at that dance school, and the circumstances were amazing. It was literally one coincidence after another. I've never taught dance. I've done it for a long time. And it was just, and I didn't even try to do this. It was done for me. One of the managers, she saw me doing a particular dance after one class. She's like, that's amazing. What is that? I'm like, well, I've done this, this, and this. And so I've kind of put it together and made my own thing. She's like, I want to learn that. So I taught dances in the park. I led dance classes just in a park that was, nearby. And she came and really liked it. And she was a manager, so she talked to the owner and got me an interview. And next thing you know, I taught dance. I've become a dance instructor. And it truly is, when I teach dance, I feel more like myself. I feel the most like myself that I do. Like it's my gift. It's and my joy. I didn't try. I just tuned in as I went to this dance studio. So I think why I shared that story is to say thank you to Bruno Groening. You saved I'm looking at a picture of him right now. You saved my life. You helped me to draw closer to Christ. You gave me a form of service, this channel and writing about your teaching that brings me so much joy. And you have helped me help so many other people. In these last 13 years where I've had a healthy body, I've had so many amazing experiences, and God willing, I'll have at least another 13. I plan to live to be 121. We'll see. Bruno said that living in a state of nature, the human body it was designed to live. I think he said 120 years. I may be wrong. Don't quote me on that one. I've had so many positive experiences with this grace of extra life. And on top of that, you've helped me find one of my deepest joys: to teach dance. Thank you doesn't cut it, and you asked us to not thank you because you said it's not you, it's God. You just pass it along. But I will thank you for coming. You asked, come to this earth. And you endured more pain and more discomfort than any of us can imagine. Bruno once described what it was like to be him. He said, I hear, smell, taste, and see and feel evil. But can you imagine to taste and smell evil? And he once said, if the friends could see how much evil there is in this room, this was at a meeting with his friends. He said, if the friends could see how much evil there was in this room, they would run out of it screaming, never to come back. So Bruno, you came here and endured. I can't even fathom. None of us can fathom. And you did it out of love. You did it out of love of God, love of humanity, and I believe out of love of us as individuals, that you actually knew the specific people you were coming to help. That's my belief. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So on this day when your earthly mission ended, you did not mince words. You said that you were looking forward to it, and I can understand why. The truth is, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to thank you. The only way I know how to thank you is to share you, to share your teachings, and to try to be more like you. So please help me in that endeavor. And to anyone, to all of your friends around the world, maybe they don't quite have the words to say this, but I think all of us admire you more than we have words to say. And admiration is generally, many of us, it's easy for me to intellectually say, like, yeah, one day down the road, 100 lifetimes from now, I will be like you. So Bruno, please help us to believe in our divine potential, in our potential to become more and more like you. Because I do struggle to believe that one day, maybe after like 1,000 lifetimes, I could be like you. So please help us to believe in our divine potential and to be more like you and to go about spreading grace the way you did. Please help us to make all the pain and suffering that you endured, to make it so that it's meaningful, so that you didn't come here for nothing. You certainly didn't come here for nothing. But please help us to make it meaningful. People would be like, who are you? I mean, a pretty natural question, right? Like this guy, this unknown guy, gets up on a balcony, first in Hertford, and then in, oh, that's so bad. I'm sorry, the second place, I haven't mentioned it in a while, so now I'm the farm. I can't think of its name. So this guy gets up and he starts talking, and like people stand up out of their wheelchairs, blind people start to see, terminally ill people, complete recovery, and people are like, "Who are you?" He gave different answers in different times, but I think maybe one of the truest answers is, "I'm your friend." So on this day, let's ask. Let's ask not for ourselves, though you can if you want, but first, let's ask for the work of Bruno Groening. Let's ask for grace and comfort and peace and ease for our dear friend Bruno Groening. Let's ask for his work. It has spread around the world, and his work is alive in each one of us. Let's ask that the work and legacy of Bruno Groening becomes stronger and stronger in this world and in each one of us. Let's ask for all the organizations that share Bruno Groening's work. Please, guidance, blessing, protection. Let's ask for all the individuals. I guess in that case, I'm kind of asking for me. I'm one of those individuals, but let's ask for all the individuals who share Bruno Groening's work. Please, guidance, protection. Let's ask for all the people who serve Bruno Groening's work, maybe a little more behind the scenes. Maybe they help in one of the organizations. Maybe they tune in. In the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends, they have a beautiful practice of tuning in for people who have addictions. That doesn't get a lot of YouTube hits or a lot of fame, but what amazing work that is. So let's ask for all the people who are in service to your work. Blessing, protection, support. Let's ask for all the friends of Bruno Groening in different organizations and no organization. That they live your teachings. In whatever way feels right, they share your teachings. Let's tune in together for a minute or two. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm honored that so many people joined in live. And thank you for joining and honoring this day. I think I'm just going to leave I think I'm going to leave it running and leave the internet open. And now I'm going to shut it down and I'll restart. And I'm just going to leave my computer on, focused on a picture of Bruno. So if you want to come back and meditate, please do. Thank you so very much. Have a blessed, blessed evening. Thank you.